Welcome to the In-Tune Guitar Academy. Today we have a special guest. In this episode we were going to be talking to Mike Lateigne, who is a guitarist, quite a famous guitarist in the GTA area. He's with a country rock band called Johnson's Creek. He's the lead guitarist, and today we're going to be talking to Mike about his past as a guitar player and where he sees himself in the future. So welcome, Mike. Thank you for joining us today. And
well, thank you for having me, Frank. I appreciate you inviting me in.
All right. So just a couple questions about how you got started. So you grew up in Timmins, I believe?
Yeah, I grew up in Timmins, Ontario. I was in a foster home, and I was fortunate enough to have a foster parent by the name of Fern Dedush, hand me my first guitar and teach me how to play. It was grueling. But I managed to get through it.
So how old were you about that? Roughly
I was about 15, 16.
Okay. Seems to be a typical age. I started playing guitar around the same time. So.
Right.
So did you take lessons as a younger?
I took a lesson here and there. There was a gentleman in Timmins by the name of Vaco Siristo who used to own a store there. He taught me some lessons, my first professional lessons. But most of my learning is self-taught. I do keep a teacher now, a jazz teacher, Mike Conto, who's very talented. And I also I do a lick a day.
Okay.
That's my regime. So every morning I get up, I come down here, and I sit and I play.
Okay.
So that's sort of how I've done it. I've taught myself how to read music.
Very good. And Not many people do.
Yeah, and I took a job teaching at a local school, and I've been teaching for myself now, for 10 to 12 years.
Okay. So growing up, what kind of music were you into? What kind of music did you
listen
to?
I grew up listening to rock and metal.
Okay.
Like a lot of people up in Northern Ontario, where I'm from, that seems to be the, heavy metal. But my parents, every Sunday morning, would play country music.
Okay.
And when I met my foster father, who taught me how to play guitar, he was in a band called the Craft Creek Gentlemen, and it was a bluegrass band. So I got exposed to banjo and mandolin and violin. And
so you started playing a bunch of different instruments, banjo, mandolin?
Yeah, I mean, not so much a mandolin player as I am a guitar player, banjo. I play bass, I play a little piano, not enough to say that I'm a pianist, but enough to make music with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the instruments sort of just fall in my lap. I tend to find that when I need something, if I can't find someone who plays it, I'll try to figure it out myself.
Okay, well, great.
That's the way to go.
I mean, I guess that's your Northern Ontario upbringing. You take care of things yourself. You're doers and...
Well, yeah, I think my generation, we spent more time doing.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of looking it up.
That's right.
So what were your early influences? Which guitar players did you look up to, were like your guitar heroes when you were younger?
Oh, my God. I was a huge Wings fan, a Paul McCartney fan. Yeah.
I love that band.
Oh, me too.
Not that many people are into Wings, but I almost prefer the Wings than the Beatles. So.
I was into Queen as well. AC/DC, I mean, Back in Black, I must have wore out 2 albums listening to that. So, yeah, so growing up, my, John Cougar Mellencamp, I guess John Cougar at the time, was really big. Everything from Flock of Seagulls right down to Iron Maiden.
Really?
Yeah, okay, I like everything.
Yeah, very diverse. I'm the same way. So do you get into classical at all, or jazz, anything like that?
I take jazz lessons right at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, mostly for knowledge, and I find that somebody who knows how to comp jazz chords really teaches you about the movement of music. Within a chord progression, how things can move, and that's what fascinates me.
So yeah, a few years ago I took a course called Guitar Boot Camp, and the teacher had a master's degree in jazz performance. And to learn that level of music theory, it was taking a drink through a water hose, or fire hose is the expression. There's a lot to take in, but the things that I picked up from that guy was pretty incredible. So.
Well, chord voicings and chord combinations, chord substitution, and the way music is built, and how you develop a tune from beginning to end. It really is, jazz is the edge of that. Like it teaches you all of that. Right?
And not to be too intimidated by different chords. It's every chord kind of has the same logic. It's just derivatives of a major chord.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the root bass note doesn't change, but the voicings do.
Exactly.
Right. And following from one chord to the next, like 2-5-1 combinations. There's a whole bunch of jazz lingo and combinations that they use to build up chord progressions. And at first, if you've never done it, it seems very complicated. But after you've done it for a while, then you start to understand the movement of chords and movement of notes. And that, I think, is why I like jazz. But for the most part, you know, following into country music where I am now, I'm coming from a rock point of view because I've always been a rock guitar player. And so now I've had to pick up the skills of a country guitar player, which is like a surmountable task that those guys can pick, right?
Right. Well, I've noticed your fingernails are cut.
Yeah, but my fingernails, they're fairly long right now at the moment, but I use acrylic on my fingernails, and it allows me to finger pick and play banjo. And,
Right.
you know, I really love Chet Atkins and Jerry Reed.
Yeah,
that kind
amazing
of stuff.
guitar players.
Yeah.
I find they don't get enough credit. Everybody talks about the guitar heroes like Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Eddie Van Halen, all those people, but the country musicians don't get enough credit. I find, like Chet Atkins, like you mentioned.
Because they're in a league of their own, right?
Right.
Popular music or pop music, that is not. And that's part of the issue, right? Like pop music, like, you know, rock and roll, country, disco, even back in the 70s. But anything that's popular in society tends to be easy listening. And that's what we like in Johnson's Creek. We want stuff that people can just tap their toes to and it's easy to listen to. But stuff like, you know, something from Chet Atkins or something from a jazz point of view can sometimes be confusing for a listener, right? And if you're not in tune to that kind of music, it makes it really hard to listen to. Like if you tell people most of the time, they'll say, "You like jazz?" "Oh, I don't like jazz." That's what they'll say.
Right. But they don't realize just how much jazz is infused in popular music.
Oh,
Take
it's everywhere.
the Police, for example, Steely Dan. Those two bands are very jazz influenced. Even Toto. That band is one of the, to me, one of the pinnacles of pop music, rock music.
Bottom End in a Toto album is awesome. I love the bass in a Toto album.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, like there's certain things about certain music that I like. I like everything. I go to thrash metal shows and I go to country shows. I go to folk shows. I go to song circles. I jam with friends who are twice my age. I jam with friends who are half my age. Like I said when we were talking earlier together, I grew up in an environment where folk music was a commonplace, and playing in a circle and playing with other people and sharing music purely for the enjoyment was the environment that I was lucky enough to grow up in. So it gave me that open sort of view of what music is.
Well, as I've grown older, I find that it's I don't really worry too much about what genre the music is. I just like stuff that I like.
That's right.
I like, sometimes I like Katy Perry. Sometimes I like, Dua Lipa, but I also like AC/DC, Metallica. So
Totally.
Yeah,
totally. Like I saw the Kill 'Em All tour. I saw the Black tour. I've seen Iron Maiden probably half a dozen times.
Awesome
Queensryche.
Yeah.
There's nothing like an Iron Maiden show.
Yeah, I saw him
Iron Maiden.
in Montreal. I saw him at the Heavy Montreal.
Right
up against the stage. Steve Harris was right above me. It was fantastic.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like one of the best concerts I ever saw. That's not metal, but one of the best concerts I ever saw was Billy Joel in Hamilton.
Okay.
And he had canceled earlier in the tour because he was sick, and showed up at the end of his tour, and he ended up playing like a 3 or 4 hour concert. At the end of that concert, he pushed his piano off the stage, his baby grand, right off the stage.
Really?
It was
nice to have that kind of money.
Yeah, well, you know, he said it that night. He said, they're going to give me another one anyway.
Oh.
That was exactly what he said.
Okay, very good.
And most of us are not like that. We value what we own and what we have as musicians, right? Once you have that guitar that you've always wanted, you know, a lot of people covet that stuff. They want to look after it, make sure it's taken care of, you know.
Yeah. So when you were in school, like in high school, did you do gigs at all? Were you in a band? Did you do live talent shows and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, because I was in care, at foster care at that time, and you know, it was a wonderful experience, I must say. I had some skills playing guitar and I could sing a little bit.
Okay.
So one day, oh my God, I like telling this story even though it's a Shania Twain story. And everyone's like, oh, you always bring up Shania Twain. But it was the actual very first time I ever got in front of somebody who was with her.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. It was at the Hollinger Park in my hometown, middle of the day. I'm riding by on my bike. Someone sees me and says, hey, Michael, you got a guitar and you sing, don't you? And I said, yeah, go get it. So I went home, got my guitar, came back. I got up on stage, and she was playing in her band Long Shot at the time. And I got on, and I totally bombed. I forgot the words. I forgot the chords. I was so nervous in front of my whole hometown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she was amazing. Like, I got off stage, and she came right up to me and said, you know, you did very, very well. You know, don't give up. You sounded great, and, you know, it happens. That kind of stuff.
She's from Timmins, right?
She's from Timmins.
Okay.
She was in my high school.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. So, you know, that was my first time I was on stage, and then soon after that, I started playing music as much as I could.
You got bitten by the bug, and
yeah, I was always bitten by the bug. You know, growing up on the Partridge Family, and you know, right?
Yeah, I watched that show every day after school.
Yeah,
and we
all did, I think, and I think it still plays. Actually, I catch it on occasion.
Okay.
And so those were the things that we were when we were young. What we were looking at were those things. You know, there were no video games.
No.
Right. It was, so those were our idols. Right. I didn't play hockey. And so,
which is pretty rare for a kid from Timmins.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, not that I didn't want to, it just wasn't something I did. Mm-hmm. And music just became that thing.
Okay. So that's your first experience. Did you have many other experiences afterwards, playing live?
Yeah, actually, I had a band called Avenue Road.
Okay.
With a group of friends in Timmins. Sab Sabaray. I always forget Sab's first name because I always knew him as Sab. Sab was a local musician up in Northern Ontario, well known. He's in the Blues Hall of Fame, in Toronto Blues Hall of Fame.
Really?
I have a funny story about that too, but maybe we'll save that for another time. And Sab recognized a singer I had working with me from Iroquois Falls, Sarah Giguère.
Okay.
And we started playing shows with Sab. So we did April Wine, Trooper. I think we did Martina McBride. We did a country festival. We played a whole bunch of rock shows. We did some work with some people in Cochrane and Iroquois Falls. And I got lucky enough to play all the arenas in Northern Ontario through Sab.
So you were a teenager at that time?
No, I was in my mid-20s.
Okay.
Early 30s,
okay.
So 30, 31, 32, I think.
Okay.
And I had just started playing guitar professionally, like not professionally, but in a band. When I was about 27, there was a block of period between being like 19 and 30 that I spent working as a hairdresser. I used to own a hair salon.
Okay.
And then, you know, at some point, you know, I was about 27, 28, I got the bug and I grabbed the guitar again and it became an obsession. And then by the time I was 30, I was playing in a band with my friends. And
it was kind of similar to what I did. I stopped playing for a little while and then got back into it, and then just the rest is history. I had courses and just studying it all the time.
You know, I wish I had just forgot about my career and focused on music.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen that way. And it was a good, fortunate thing, I think, because for myself, I became social, you know, being in that kind of profession. I got to meet and talk to a lot of people.
Okay. So how long ago did you form Johnson's Creek?
Oh, okay. So that's an argument. We have the bass player and I say it's like 5 years ago. He says it's like 7 years ago. it's more like 6.
Okay. So you were all friends? How did you come together?
Well, actually, I'm not from where I live now in Aurora. And so I got invited out to a jam, and I didn't know anyone. So I just showed up with my guitar, and I got up on stage with the band, and about, 10 minutes later, the band's like just yelling at me, "Stay up on stage, keep playing, keep playing." So I played all night, and at one point during the night, Glenn Code, who's the singer in our band, who, not my singer, but he is the singer in Johnson's Creek and the voice of Johnson's Creek, and we're so blessed to have him. He got up and sang a George Jones tune, and everybody in the room, jaw dropped. You should have seen that. It was unbelievable. So we finished playing. We go sit down at a table. I hand him a card. I said, "Would you like to start a band?" "Definitely want to start a band," he said. So next day he called.
Nice.
And then the bass player I met at the beach a week or so later.
Okay.
My son and I are at the beach at Sybil's Point, and that's on Lake Simcoe. And my son starts speaking French to the girls that are on the beach with him. There's a couple of these little girls that he's talking to in French. And then I go over and he says, "Oh, they go to my school." And their father is my bass player. So he comes up to me and we start talking, and I talk French to him. I don't know French very well, but I thought he spoke French. He didn't speak French either. So we had that in common, 2 English parents of French kids.
Right.
And then I asked him what he did for a living, and he actually said, "Well, I'm a bass player, but I work at a car lot. Like he manages a car.
Yeah.
He manages a Jeep dealership."
So
in
his heart, he's a musician, but
when
reality is doing something else.
Right. He's a bass player. And when I said to him, "Do you like country music?" Because I had never really played country music, and now I'm working with a country singer. So I said, "Do you like country music?" And he says, "Yeah, come to my Jeep. I'll play you the top 40. I know all the music, and I have a 5-string, and I play bass, and oh my God." So now it was me, Mike, and Glenn.
Nice.
And we've been together ever since.
That was formed roughly about 6 years ago. It's all the same original members, or did you change members at all?
The drummer, just like, Spinal Tap. You know how the drummer always blows up? We've been through, well, it's a funny story, because if you know us, you know that there's 2 Mikes in the band. Okay. Right? I'm myself and Mike Crombez. And at one time, our first drummer, his name was Mike Graziano. His name was Mike. Okay. And then the next guy's name was Mike as well. I forget his last name. He actually was the one that played on Ocean Fantasy for us. Okay. And he was great as well. And then we had another guy by the name of Mike Foster, who played drums. He moved away.
It's a band of Mikes?
Yeah, it was a band of Mikes. At one time, it was going to be 3 Mikes and Glenn, right? Oh, yeah. That was going to be the name of the band. It was a joke, right? And then, so we had 3 guys named Mike, and we made sure that the next guy was not named Mike. His name was Rick. Okay. Rick is gone now. He's playing more rock stuff, I think. And then we had another guy named Sean who played with us. He was more of a crash and banger type of guy. Played in punk bands in the punk scene, and
just not right for country.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it's very hard because drums make a band, right? Like, if you've got a great drummer, then you've got a great band.
Yeah, Rolling Stones.
Like the Rolling Stones, yeah. And so it's very hard to find that person. And then, out of nowhere, I meet this gentleman online through Bandmix or something like that. I get an email. "Are you looking for a drummer? My name is Jake," and he's from South Porcupine, which is Timmins. Yeah. And it turns out his mother was my typing teacher in high school.
Small world.
He played with Doug and the Slugs.
Nice. I remember
uh,
them from the 80s. I think they were popular back in the late 70s, 80s.
Yeah. He's just so talented and so on the money and so aware, and he's a little older than us. Okay. Not that we're young, but he's a little bit older than us, and he has a lot more experience. So when we're out playing, having that behind you is gold. Like it's nice to have a guy that always is in the pocket, stays calm, and knows what's going on.
Well, I'm the same way, because I've been in a few bands, and I've always said I'd rather have a Charlie Watts type player that's pretty simple, that stays in the pocket, like you say, but keeps the beat, than a Neil Peart wannabe, because Not many people can do all the crash band rolls and keep time. We want timing. We just want
One timing, yeah.
Get the timing right, then do the rest after.
Jake is just so good at knowing where things are. Actually, you know, we used to laugh. You get a drummer come in and he doesn't learn the song. He just plays the drums, right? That's not Jake.
Okay,
Jake
good.
knows the songs before he gets in. Actually, he knows them better than us most of the time. And so it's just so wonderful to have him. So having those three guys, they're like brothers, right? We've done so many shows together. I think 2019 we did 58 shows in 1 year.
That's just in Ontario?
In Ontario,
okay.
yeah. Ontario, Northern Ontario, Southern Ontario. We are heading, we're touring this summer, so we've got an East Coast tour and a West Ontario, West and Manitoba tour coming up.
Oh, really?
So,
wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, we're playing with the Reclaws in Winkler, Manitoba.
Okay.
In August, and we have so far I think we have Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay, Brandon, and there's one other place where we're playing on the West Coast, west side of that tour. On the east side of the tour, we just confirmed Fredericton last night.
Okay.
And we're playing Truro, and we're playing
Nova Scotia.
In Nova Scotia, but the guy in Truro is the same guy that runs the festival in Truro.
Okay.
So it's kind of our tryout. If we do well with him, he'll hopefully have us next year for his festival.
Okay.